Hello, and welcome to today's lesson. This lesson is on the narrative thought process, and it is a foundational piece of the coaching that we will do together. When you look at this diagram that's up on your screen right now, I want you to notice just the flow, just to start. So you have the circumstance at the top, thought, feeling, behavior, belief, action, and result. Behavior would actually go up under the action. It's never the circumstance that creates our struggle. So as we think about the different things that we're going through in our lives, be it relationship, our careers, our habits, our anxieties, our stress, it's never the circumstance. It's what we're thinking about those circumstances that actually creates whatever feeling that we're going to have, okay? Or the feeling about the circumstance. In most instances, we're going to have a circumstance that will trigger a thought. And depending on the thought that we have, it could either be positive or negative. My job is to show you how to just look at it with a different perspective, a different lens, so that you can then see it from a different angle, therefore being able to be in the position of changing your thoughts or choosing which thought you wish to have. Okay? Not saying that any one of our thoughts is right or wrong, but just being aware of it. Part of this process is personal mastery. And it's a skill that not very many people have. It's a skill that you're going to learn. So let's look through this structure here. A circumstance can be anything. Any situation that's happening in your relationship, in your career, your habits, your productivity, your stress, or your anxiety level. But I want you to think of something that's happened recently. A particular circumstance that's fresh in your mind that we can go through this process. And if you want to pull out a pen or a piece of paper, you can follow along with me. When you think of this circumstance, I want you to think of the thoughts that come with that. What thoughts do you have associated? Say, for instance, it's in a career and you got an email from a supervisor. Okay? What thoughts come through your mind based on the content of that email? And I just want you to think about that for just a moment. You can write it down if you wish. And I want you to think about where you are in your job, where you work, who your boss is, and what you do. And then in that circumstance of you getting that email, start to write down any thoughts again. Now, we're going to move to the second one, and I want you to think about any feelings. Now, if you're not used to tapping into your feeling space, that's quite all right. Most often, you may tend to say things like, I think this is what it means. Okay? So write down what meaning or what feeling is behind those thoughts. So as you listed the thoughts of where you are in your job or where you work or who your boss is, what feelings come up? And again, if the feelings aren't coming up, then what are your opinions or your judgments? What are you unhappy with and what don't you like? What do you wish to change? Often we don't pay enough attention to how we feel and can be just powering through something that we feel terrible without even realizing it. This is completely normal, especially for the high functioning anxious person, because we already have the anxiety inside of us, but we've been taught or we have learned how to overcome those situations in insulating or putting on a front or making it seem like everything's okay so that we can continue. So assessing how we feel determines our level of satisfaction. So just allowing yourself to take a moment and notice if there's any feelings coming up. Any feelings of irritation or uninspired or boredom or anger. Now, underneath the thought and the feeling, this is where we will be one-on-one working together. But oftentimes, there's a belief that comes underneath that thought or that feeling. If you can think of, just for right now, what does it mean that you are uninspired in your job? What does it mean that you are bored or frustrated? What does it mean that you have these judgments or that you are in this place that you'd like to change? What does it mean to you? And again, we're going to work on this one on one to go through where that belief tends to hold subconscious thoughts about how that circumstance truly affects you, how it's personal. Okay? Let's jump down to the action piece for just a moment. So, how do you act or behave in this situation when you feel or think this way? So, this is where it gets interesting. I want you to step back and look at how you're showing up. If you are thinking about how things are going on in your career, how do you show up at work when you are thinking or feeling what you've written down or thought about in the first two steps? Do you have a bad attitude at work? Do you feel defensive at work, possibly? Or maybe you're just kind of pushing along, hoping that the day will just tick along and you'll finally get to the end of the day, or you'll finally get to Friday. And then the last one of this thought process that I really want you to understand is, what is the result of you acting or behaving this way? Because in order for us to get to that place where you want to be, you have to see what results you're actually getting right now. Be honest about how your behavior affects the situation. Taking responsibility is so challenging, but it's something that we need to do in order to step into choosing the life that we live. Take as much responsibility as you can here to see what effect you are having in this situation. Once you've gone through this process truthfully, you can start to get a clear idea of how you can choose different thoughts and different feelings. So let's not just go through the motions by reading this. We're actually going to sit down and go through this process, but I wanted you to have a clear understanding of this lesson before we got together. If you have any questions, please be sure to write those down, and when we see each other one-on-one, we will tackle it, and have a beautiful evening.